November 1st. St. Paul's Cathedral in London is filled with hundreds of candles. Their flames dance against the cold Gothic windows. The organ resonates through the ancient naves. A royal procession advances down the central aisle. But this is no ordinary ceremony. It is the wedding of a 6-year-old child, Isabella of France. Europe's youngest princess walks toward the altar. There, Richard II, King of England, a 29-year-old man, awaits her. She is dressed in golden silks that drag across the stone floor. The little girl can barely carry the weight of her tiny crown. In a few minutes, she will be declared Queen of England. She is sealing a political alliance that will change the destiny of 2 nations. How did such a young child become the centerpiece of medieval diplomacy at its most brutal? To understand Isabella's tragic fate, we must return to 14th century France. The kingdom lived under the dark shadow of royal madness. Isabella was born on November 9th, 39 at the Louvre Palace. She was the daughter of Charles VI of France and Isabeau of Bavaria. She was the royal couple's 4th daughter, a princess born in dark times that would mark her entire existence. Her father, Charles VI, was known as Charles the Mad. He suffered from terrifying episodes of insanity. These bouts of madness had afflicted him since the age of 20. During his crises, the king would not recognize his wife or children. He believed he was made of glass and would shatter if anyone touched him. He would flee through the palace corridors, screaming that invisible enemies were pursuing him. France lived plunged in chaos. It was governed by regents who fought bitterly for power. The true king remained a prisoner in his own mind. Isabella's mother, Isabeau of Bavaria, was an equally controversial figure. She was ambitious and unscrupulous. She took advantage of her husband's illness to accumulate power and wealth. The chroniclers of the time described her as a dissolute woman. They claimed she kept lovers while neglecting her own children. For Isabeau of Bavaria, her daughters were valuable commodities. They were pieces in the great European political game. They were destined to seal alliances through arranged marriages. Little Isabella grew up in this toxic environment. She was surrounded by palace intrigues and political instability. France was torn apart by the 100 Years' War against England. It was fractured by conflicts between powerful factions, and it was haunted by the consequences of royal madness. For a sensitive child, this was a world of fear. Witnessing her father's crises and her mother's calculating coldness created deep traumas. These were wounds that would accompany her throughout her life. In 1396, a diplomatic opportunity arose. It would change Isabella's destiny forever. Richard II of England had been at war with France for years. Now he sought peace to consolidate his own internal power. He had recently lost his beloved first wife, Anne of Bohemia. He needed a new matrimonial alliance for political and financial stability. The French councillors saw a golden opportunity in the English request. They proposed the marriage between Isabella and Richard. They offered a gigantic dowry of £800,000, and with it, a truce that would last for 28 years. For a France bankrupted by war, it was an irresistible offer. They could buy peace with the sacrifice of a child. The journey from Calais to London lasted several weeks. It was marked by grandiose ceremonies in each English city they crossed. Local authorities competed to offer the most sumptuous receptions. All this was for the future queen. But Isabella, exhausted and intimidated by the excessive pomp, frequently cried. She simply asked to go home. Her new life at the English court was a paradox. She was a queen in name, but a child in a golden cage. Her life was protected by the circumstances of her age. Richard II, to his Kiar, understood this. He treated her more like a cherished daughter than a wife. He provided her with French tutors to continue her education. He allowed her to maintain her native customs and language. He ensured she was raised with all the dignity of a royal princess. Isabella received her own apartments at Westminster Palace. She had a private manor house and servants devoted to her well-being. A fragile paternal affection grew between the troubled king and the child queen. For a brief moment it seemed she had found a gentle sanctuary. But the shadows were lengthening around Richard's throne. His reign was marked by conflict with powerful English nobles. They saw his quest for peace with France as a sign of weakness. A storm was gathering, and its name was Henry Bolingbroke. He was Richard's ambitious cousin, exiled but determined to return. He planned to seize the crown for himself. The delicate truce built on Isabella's marriage was about to be shattered, and the child queen was in more danger than she could possibly imagine. In September, tiny Isabella's protected world collapsed. Henry Bolingbroke returned to England, leading a rebellion. Richard II was deposed, his authority crumbling in weeks. He was captured and imprisoned in the grim Pontefract castle. There in the dark and cold, he was murdered. Isabella, at just 10 years old, became a widow. She had lost her husband, her crown, and her only protector. The gentle king who had read her stories was gone. In his place was a new monarch, Henry IV. And he had a serious problem. What to do with the child queen of a deposed king? Isabella was a legitimate queen, but her marriage had never been consummated. She had no heirs. Worse, the massive dowry of £800,000 had already been spent. Returning her to France meant returning money that no longer existed. So Henry IV kept her as a golden prisoner. She was a valuable bargaining chip for future negotiations. The young widow was held in comfortable captivity at Havering Castle. Here she spent 3 years fighting for her own freedom. The girl who once cried for home now showed remarkable strength. Her desperate letters to her family in France reveal a child forced to mature. She was a princess who understood her own worth. "I write to you in tears," she wrote in one letter to her father, "for I am kept here like a prisoner far from all I love. I am without hope of return." Her pleas finally touched the heart of Charles VI. During one of his rare moments of lucidity, he was enraged. He categorically demanded his daughter's return to France. In 4001, after long and tense negotiations, an agreement was reached. Isabella was finally allowed to go home. But the girl who had left Paris at 6 was not the same. She returned as a 12-year-old, aged by traumatic experience. The return to the Louvre did not bring the happiness she expected. France was still plunged into chaos. Her family received her more as a political inconvenience than a beloved daughter. Isabella's tragedy, however, was far from over. In 1405, at 16, she was once again used as political currency. Her mother arranged her second marriage, this time to Charles of Orleans, a young French poet and nobleman. But this time was different. Isabella finally achieved something that had been denied her in childhood. She found a marriage based on mutual affection. Charles of Orleans was sensitive, intellectual, and genuinely in love with her. The couple found happiness in art's poetry and a love that flourished. It seemed after a life of turmoil she had found her peace. Isabella's newfound happiness was a fragile, fleeting moment. The peace she had been sold for as a child was never meant to last. The 100 Years' War roared back to life with renewed fury. In 1407, her husband Charles of Orleans was called to battle. He was captured by the English at the devastating Battle of Agincourt. He would spend the next 25 years as a prisoner in England. The same fate that had befallen her first husband now claimed her second. Isabella was once again a widow in practice. She returned to a life of solitude and dependence on the French royal family. Life had cruelly stolen from her twice the possibility of loving and being loved. Motherhood had brought her some consolation, but it also carried the bitter irony of knowing her own daughter's fate. She knew Jeanne would likely be used as a political instrument, a pawn in the same brutal game of arranged marriages. In 1409, Isabella gave birth to her only daughter, Jeanne of Orleans. But the delivery was difficult. Isabella of France died from postpartum complications. She was just 20 years old. Her life had been entirely dominated by the political needs of others. She was sacrificed at 6 in a diplomatic marriage. She was a widow at 10 and imprisoned at 12. She was married again at 16 for political convenience. Her death passed almost unnoticed by the chroniclers of the time. It was a quiet end, a striking contrast to the pomp of her first wedding. Isabella of France remains an eternal symbol of childhood vulnerability. She is a testament to innocence lost before the ambitions of the powerful. The child princess delivered as a political gift never truly had a childhood. From the age of 6, she carried the responsibilities of a state. Her life was a continuous sacrifice to the gods of medieval politics. She paid the supreme price for a temporary peace between enemy nations. Her own happiness and ultimately her own life. Isabella's fate was sealed by the ambitions of kings. But what happens when the ambition comes from the Queen herself? In our next video, we will explore the story of Isabeau of Bavaria, Isabella's ruthless mother, a queen accused of treachery, greed, and of selling her own children for power. Subscribe to uncover more forgotten chapters of history, where every crown has a price and every throne casts a long, dark shadow. What story of royal betrayal should we explore after that? Let us know in the comments below.